Hello and welcome back to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we explore the tragic line of duty deaths of firefighters and paramedics to learn from these sacrifices. These podcasts are a brief synopsis of the events that we've obtained from official reports and published stories. We want to provide an easy and convenient method for today's firefighters to quickly learn the lessons of past line of duty deaths and prevent them from happening again. Thanks so much for listening to us. We really appreciate your attention and your time. We're slowly growing in popularity. Please tell your friends and coworkers and spread the knowledge of the availability of our podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Podcast Traffic or on our Facebook page, which is called Emergency Traffic. Or at Gmail, you can send us your thoughts and feedback, emergencytrafficpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitchers. Please give us a thumbs up or some stars if you like the podcast. That helps the algorithms to make us more widely known by the listeners of those applications. I'm your host, Paul, and today I have with me my co-host, Dirk. One of our regular co-hosts, Doug, is under the weather, so we're going ahead without him this week. Hey, Dirk, how's it going?
Good, Paul. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks. You still on days off?
Last few days off, yeah. Back
Yeah.
on Tuesday, I think.
Right. So you got all the honey-do list stuff done. Everything's all cleaned up and ready.
I'd say about 3/4. My wife would argue about that, but yeah, I think I got 3/4 of the list down. So
Right.
still gotta leave some stuff once the weather's more stable, less snow on the ground.
Exactly. Yeah, I haven't touched the yard work or anything yet. Hey, you're going somewhere exciting here soon, right? You're taking off to Europe to go to the largest fire equipment and training show in the world, Interschutz. That happens every 5 years. You're heading over there in June?
Yes, in June. It's gonna be like a family friend visiting, and then the Interschutz probably gonna be there for 4 days, 3 or 4 days. I went in 2000 and then again in 2015, and spent about 3 days in 2015 there, and it wasn't quite enough. Like an extra day would have been nice. I know this one is going to be a little bit smaller than the previous ones. There were a few manufacturers that pulled out of the exhibition due to the war in Ukraine and supply chain stuff. I also think they might expect the intershoots to happen again in 2025. So that's a very short span. So for people that don't know, the intershoots only happens every 5 years. It is the largest exhibition, firefighter exhibition in the world. Unfortunately, there's no training part to it, but it's just the sheer size of it, and then the world is there. Like manufacturers, you don't talk to vendors, you talk to manufacturers directly, which is fantastic. And yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it. I'm also going to visit my old fire department over there, and a friend of mine might enable me to do a ride. I'll keep busy for I got about 20 days, so yeah.
Nice. That's great. Well, hopefully we'll talk about it again in the future, and maybe we can do a tailboard talk about the show after you go. I was there in 2000 as well. We didn't know each other then, but I was there as part of the company I worked for. I used to work for Emergency One and Superior Fire Apparatus here in Canada, and I was over there as a product manager looking at all the mini pumpers and off-road trucks and unique fire apparatus and stuff, because we sort of specialize in those areas. And yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I've been to FDIC many times, and the Firehouse Show, International Fire Chiefs and stuff. And yeah, nothing compared to Interschutz. It was an amazing big show, and I saw fire trucks, from all over the place. It was super interesting. I wish I was going to that as well. This week, actually, FDIC is happening again this week coming up, so I won't be able to attend, but that's good. Hopefully, people get lots of good learning, and that's the nice part, is having that training component first, and then the trade show. Okay, so this we're going to do it. This is a tailboard talk, a bonus episode. Yep. So we're not covering any specific incidents. We're having a tailboard talk. We're going to try to do one of those every month, just extra stuff for people. And since this month was high-rise month, and we did the Regis Towers and the Shirley Towers high-rise line of duty deaths, we thought we should talk about tall aerial devices and the likes. Since They are fairly rare in North America, but yet the rest of the world seems to buy tall aerials. So we wanted to spend a little time talking about that and the reasons why or why not. We both have some of that worldly experience, and I've spent a lot of time all over North America. And also articulated platforms is another thing that I think personally every fire department should have, one or two, just for those unique situations where they can't get a straight aerial in the place they need to go. So that's what we're going to talk about. There's been some recent deliveries. We have a Facebook, I've got a bit of a Facebook group called Tall Aerial Apparatus Over 135 Feet in North America, because that seems to be the dividing line. There's about several dozen 135-foot Emergency One makes aerials that are in that range. SMEAL maybe have made one or two. And of course, there's a bunch of Brontos that are 135 feet. And there's very few above that are in service in North America. I'll just summarize a few of them here, and then we can discuss thoughts as to what we think, why, and discuss some of the ones that are in other areas, maybe, Dirk. So Vancouver just took delivery recently of a 144-foot articulated platform. It's a French company called Club that built the aerial device, and it's mounted on a Spartan chassis with a body, I believe, by General Safety out of Minnesota. Calgary had a 167-foot Bronto that was delivered in about 96. It's now out of service and actually was being sold here recently privately, and it hasn't been replaced. Toronto recently took delivery of the tallest aerial in North America, which was how tall was it? 230 foot, so very tall for North American standards. 230 foot articulated platform, a Bronto, on a commercial chassis, no pump, no tank, just an aerial, specialized device. Toronto has quite a few platform aerials, straight stick aerials, and Brontos in service. Calgary, I believe, still has two Brontos in service, but they're only 114s.
I was just thinking the Toronto truck there, aesthetically, we always talk about the European versus the North American, and the North American always looks cool because of the chrome and all the stuff. But aesthetically, that Toronto truck is very ugly. I think
because
it's a specialty try. I get that, and there's also budgets involved and stuff like that. So if you go a commercial chassis, you save a buck or two, right? And then
there's really not many twin steer commercial custom chassis out there. E1 built three in my lifetime that I know of, which were the 267-foot Brontos, the one for Calgary, the one for Seba Chemicals, which was a twin truck down in Alabama, I think. And then they built a twin steer with a 174-foot Bronto on it. That was a demo. It was actually a prototype for the twin steer chassis. And then it got sold to Coral Gables, Florida. It actually fought a fire in Miami during sales call at the local stadium. Apparently, they had a fire, and this truck was in the area, and they used it to extinguish that fire. Apparently, anyway, and it was a demo for a long time. And eventually, Coral Gables bought it. So there's not a lot of twin steer, and actually the Calgary truck, I was working at Superior, and we were going to build it on a Tor chassis. E1 hadn't jumped on board yet to support that, and Calgary wanted a tall aerial that needed a tandem steer chassis. So we were going to build it on a Tor chassis, which is a custom chassis made out of Quebec. They built snow plows and stuff like that in those days. But then E1 decided they would build a tandem steer. So I think that's why Toronto ended up going with the Mac, is to get the twin steer because of the heavy weight on the front axle.
It's basically a cement truck. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's a tri-drive too, right? It's got a triple drive axles on the rear. So to me, I don't mind the commercial chassis, but it's not traditional. and it's a specialty piece. This is what you and I, and well, our friend Doug, who's under the weather today, can't be here to debate with us, but uh, it's a specialty vehicle, just like a marine unit or any other specialty piece of equipment that I think there's a risk we need it. But yes, yeah, the maintenance is high, the training is intense, the usage is low. You know, Montreal has a couple 135 foot, which they now I think market A1 marks to the 137 foot aerials. Houston has some too. There's a few kicking around, and then of course we read about the England, right, with the reach after the
Grenfell. Yeah, after the
Grenfell
Grenfell
Tower.
Tower. Yeah. Yeah.
Doug had a memory blank there. Fort Worth has a 137 as well, a straight stick ladder, which I've climbed. It's a long ways up. You just another section, another section.
Yeah. They're
In my
not designed to climb, Paul. They that's why those like the ones that England or London bought, they have the elevator on the side, right, to bring you up there. So I think it can transport 3 or 4 people at a time. So
right,
yeah, it's really not. I mean, you beat yourself up. You climb what's
right,
it in meters, 64 meters. You're done.
yeah.
Like
So
especially at a good climbing angle of the healthy 72 degrees, right? Yeah, you're pretty poop when you get there.
and so like and we were saying, so the Grenfell after Grenfell Towers, now the UK London Fire Brigade specifically, and I believe maybe some others have purchased some tall aerial ladders, either articulating or straight with platforms and elevators if they're a straight ladder, to meet some sort of a need. Now I'm aware that when Grenfell happened, London Fire Brigade actually didn't even have trucks, what we would call a truck in North America, or an aerial device, or many of them assigned to high rises. They weren't called because typically we're not using the ladder to fight it. So don't send them. Now they've kind of made a about face there saying, hey, we need some tall devices. Those London ones are very tall as well. What 40? How tall are they?
Was
44
it
meters,
60,
I think.
64 meters? No, they're 64 meters. That's
64 meters.
100 like
180 feet.
yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. Close to 200 feet. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So
So
they are really tall. Those are the ones that I saw in Hanover at the Interschutz in 2015.
15.
And I was gonna line up there, but that was a big lineup to just get a ride on that elevator. It was pretty
Right,
cool,
right.
and it was very impressive when you look at it because when you look up the aerials, ours are kind of like they're torqued, I think, like
Yeah,
they're free
North
hanging, right?
North American aerials have a reverse torque, so
Yeah.
they bend up. Yeah.
No, they bend down. The North America, the Europeans bend up. They are
Okay.
flexed. They are
Yeah.
flexed. So when you look up, they really they are pre-flexed. One of the reasons, as far as I know, you should know that better. But the most stable position you can bring a European ladder in is basically
Su-
rested on
supported.
something
Supported.
supported. It's a bridging function. You can actually
Right.
tell the computer, hey, we're going to go bridging function. And
Right.
now, depending on the angle, you can bring up a lot of people up and down.
Right.
Um, and ours, if you set them onto anything, they have to go and get checked because
Right.
they
They're
they might collapse, right?
not
They're not
designed to be supported. Yeah, and they're
exactly.
worried
So
that
it's
you
really
may
the opposite
take
of the
foot
Europeans.
pressure.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting because when you look at them, they look the same, but they're not.
Yeah, yeah, they have a different, fundamental different principle of design in a
Yeah.
North American aerial and a European aerial. I believe it's the same with like helmets in suspended versus absorbent padding.
Yeah.
So similar kind of thing. So, but why is it, that the rest of the world widely seems to have a desire for taller aerial ladders than the 135 feet or so that we buy in North America, and by far and large, most aerials are 100 feet in North America. Uh,
Right.
why is that? What do you think, Dirk? Like, is it
I
the England only allows like you can build the tall building with only one stairway versus here?
I'm not sure if that's still the case. I can just speak for Germany that most multi-story residents only have one stairwell. That's why this whole protecting the stairwell, even though we're advertising it or promoting it in North America, that you want to protect them, but we always have two. And that's when we talk about high rise, we always so say one is the escape stairwell, the other one is the fire attack stairwell. The
Right.
Europeans don't have that luxury, basically. Anytime they have buildings that are taller than 4 stories, where you cannot reach the floors with the ground ladder, they need this aerial device as a second means of egress
Right. Right. I
because the
remember
building doesn't supply that, right?
they
So
they they talked about that. What was that? Hargate, London, a
yeah,
month ago or so, and they talked about using escape hoods to get the people
yeah,
down the stairways, right?
yeah. It's been
Which, of
used
course,
for
in
30
North
years.
America,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't hear of escape hoods at all. I've heard a little bit for planes, but
yeah,
really, escape hoods are
yeah.
non-existent in North
Yeah,
America.
I'm not sure why that is. I like to think that the Europeans are more concerned about the citizens than we are. We just tell them to hold their breath or protect in place. But you see this quite often. Like again, when I started in 1990, we already had escape boats. Every fire attack team took two of them there. They were in like a
Yeah.
plastic tub, kind of like a Tupperware thing, and there were two in there. So per fire attack team, you had four with you. So when you encountered civilians, you just threw that thing over, and they had a CO filter built in.
Right.
Fairly expensive because they also expire. And I saw that in, I think, Paris. They are using ones that you can hook up to your SCBA basically, so they get fresh air. They don't need that filter.
Oh, okay.
Um, just to bring the people out. So that'd be
Right.
a assigned task for a crew to go in and bring the people out. So you don't bust your ass fighting a fire and then you're low in air. Now you have to share the air with
Right.
the civilian.
Yeah, because
Um,
as soon as we're operating in the stairway, it becomes smoke filled unless it's
yes.
being pressurized either from the
Yeah.
building or from
Yeah.
auxiliary means by the firefighters.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's odd that we don't see a lot of high aerials, and it's interesting. When Montreal had a 167 as well, it was a tri drive
Right.
Bronto on a Pacific chassis, I believe, that Anderson's Engineering had built. And then Pierce sold to South Padre Island, Texas, which is a bit of a resort area on the Gulf of Mexico, lots of big high rises and stuff like that. And they had a 160, 174, the same as the Coral Gables truck, similar. I put a picture in it. It's now been sold to a place called Jay, Vermont, I believe. So there was a desire, but it seems to not be prevalent in North America to worry about a taller aerial device. To
Yeah. I
me,
think.
I think
Yeah.
as a risk management, we should have. I mean, I think, of course, I also think that our fire department should have high water trucks
Hmm.
as well, like for flooding. Lots of places in the states are buying high water trucks, and somebody in Canada recently bought a high water truck, so like a off road military style or
Yeah.
tall so that they
Kind of
could
like a
rescue
unimog
people.
kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at the flooding in Calgary and High River, and we're having flooding today in Winnipeg, apparently from weather. Why don't we
Yeah.
have those? And we just don't seem to be worried about that extreme risk. We're worried about the day to day, all the calls, and we're so
Yeah.
busy doing everything day to day, and the obscure events don't get foam trucks. Toronto just bought a big foam truck too, uh, which good for them. They're being prepared for managing risks. Of course, they had a fuel tanker burn up on the highway a year or two ago, and they had to call in the airport and some chemical companies, and maybe that's what prompted them to, hey, we need a foam truck. And when I was young, just starting in the fire service, everybody had some specialty vehicles. In Saskatoon, there's a big fuel terminal there, and they had a foam truck, and they'd given it to the city of Saskatoon. City of Saskatoon, by the time I was in the game in the late '80s, they disposed of it, and it's like, okay, you got this terminal here. Besides the two or three crash trucks at the airport, there's no foam trucks in Saskatoon to put out a big terminal fire. So it's the same as a big aerial. Why don't we have more?
I think the problem with that is like the pre-planning, but it's also, especially for Canada, the density. So that the chance that something happens is a little bit slimmer. So if you have this foam truck for 30 years and nothing happened, you haven't never needed it in 30 years, and then it's like, oh, why would we need it? Guaranteed,
So,
year 31, you would need it.
so
But
is that why
that's
we don't have tall aerials?
Yeah, and you know what? I think the other reason is that's where I would have loved to have Doug here because he's a big compartment guy. That's why he doesn't like the European ladders, even though it is a very different concept. Um, North American ladders have a lot of compartment space with a lot of tools on it, and that might be also a reason why there's not that many tall ones because the tall ones already they weigh a lot, and now you put that tall aerial on that chassis. Now you can't put enough tools on it anymore, and
And
then
they take
everybody's
up
like,
a lot of space. But
and then they take up a lot of space to set up. But the Europeans have bigger problems with that because they don't usually have that space, but they have different technologies for that. So the aerials in Europe, even though they're tall, they're still light. They still have to adhere to building or construction bylaws. Like I know in Germany, they can't be heavier than 20 tons for an aerial device, right? So that's based on underground parquet and a whole bunch of stuff. So they have specific areas on every high rise that are assigned for staging for aerials, and then they are
yeah,
specifically built, right?
yeah,
And we
and
don't have that. We don't have it, right? I don't
part
know.
of that,
I parked a
yeah,
40
I think
88,000 pound aerial on the parquet. Was that good? I, is it designed for
yeah,
that?
yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, part of the factor there is the standards for the basket load in Europe versus North America are quite different. In that, in North America, you need to be able to be a platform. It has to be rated at 750 pounds live load plus a little bit of equipment, and 500 pounds of a wet load when you're flowing water. Whereas the numbers in the UK or in Europe are less than that. I don't have them off the top of my head, but also the European designed aerials, and maybe or in the Middle East or in the Far East as well, is very common to use extension limiting systems to prevent too
Yeah,
much tip load to tip the truck over,
yeah.
so they can have a lighter truck. In North America, except for the Brontos and now some of the Rosenbauer smart, what they call smart aerials, but many of the manufacturers are hesitant to adopt electronic systems to limit tip load or operating at an angle, an extent reach limiting devices and those kind of things. So we
Which is
tend to make the
funny.
truck
Yeah,
because the rated load has to be at zero
yeah.
at full extension that the truck will go to, and you have to have electronic systems, and people are hesitant to do that, and so, and that that's part of it, that which makes the truck heavier, right? Of course.
Yeah.
um
But it's funny, Paul, that you said that North America is scared of all those sensors, but like the last truck I drove, it had sensors out the yin yang. Like there's safety for everything. Like it's almost makes it worse because they don't trust the operator anymore. Everything is relying on sensors. That's why those things are constantly out of service. So, and those computer controlled aerial devices in Europe, they've been computer controlled since the 90s.
right, yeah.
So
and,
it's well known. It works, but there's also an emphasis on the training,
and
right?
maintenance, yeah, training and
And
maintenance.
making
And
absolutely.
some builders in Canada, I mean, Thibault fire trucks out of
Mhm.
Quebec, and Pierreville was a sister company that was similar. They were very much into more sophisticated electronics on their aerial devices to allow it to do stuff. But of course, this was in the late 80s, early 90s, and the electronics weren't as reliable, and therefore they got a bad name. Just like many of the Brontos and the Simon LTI snorkels and stuff
Yeah,
in the 80s and 90s got a bad name. Well, shoot, the chassis got a bad name too, because it was the early engines and transmissions with computers, and you had to have a separate
yeah.
battery to power the engine in case the main battery died or you had low voltage or stuff. But the tall aerial thing phenomenon, and we're going to have to wrap up here soon, isn't new. I mean, another company that built a lot of tall aerial ladder platforms in North America was Calavar, which was out of California, and virtually most of the cities in Western Canada or across Canada and in the States had these massive 150-ish foot articulating platforms made by Calavar. They were called Firebirds.
Right.
Saskatoon had one. Calgary had one. Vancouver had them. They're everywhere. They're all over the states. They were very sophisticated for their day. Problematic if you didn't set them up exactly right. They wouldn't operate, all that kind of stuff. We have to remember that straight stick aerial platforms didn't really come on the market till the mid to late 80s. Really only Tebow and Grove, were a few of them. And so we saw a lot more articulating platforms. Personally, I think articulating's good. But, we had lots of them in the 80s, the snorkels, the Simon LTI snorkels, etc., the Calivars and the Brontos. And then everybody's kind of gone away from them because they do require a little more maintenance. They require a little more operator training. It was funny, actually. We were chatting on the Facebook group, and one of a firefighter I know who works for a department who has a couple of Brontos, complains about always hitting the limit switches and stuff like that. Well, if the operator's hitting the limit switch, it means you don't know where it is. And that's a training issue, right?
No, we got to teach them on how to override those limiters, because that's safe.
That's a training issue, right? And so, yeah.
You're right. But saying this, the articulating, just going back to the European ones, like in Europe now, almost every aerial has the top fly section articulated, like halfway down. It's not much. It's like,
very common.
I don't know, 20 feet, 30 feet. I'm not sure about the measurement there, but that always comes in handy, right? If you just have to dip down a little bit.
Yeah, and Tebow actually marketed that as called the Skyarm. I saw it for the first time in 1986. It was a revolutionary new product for North America. The last 20 feet to articulate on the aerial device. It's copied from the Europeans. They've been doing it forever. And I think Rosenbauer, they call theirs now. They marketed again. So Pierce bought Tebow or Nova Quintec, and they sold them for a few years, and eventually they just stopped in about early 2000, stopped selling the Skyarm. Right. And then, but now Rosenbauer, because of their connection with Metz, because Rosenbauer and Metz are the same company, they offer their North American aerial, the Rosenbauer, whatever it's called, which is a smart aerial as well. It has envelope controls, limiting. I've sold, Brooks has one. Souk BC has one. You can pull the ladder up without the outriggers down or extended. You can lift it all the way up, flip it around, take it down the back.
It will stop you at any point. Yep.
Right. Which most of the North American aerials don't do. And anyway, they now have the King Cobra, which is the last 20 feet or so extends to get over a parapet wall or something like that. Which, it's not popular in North America anymore. It used to be. Everybody had articulating something. And now we don't. Although maybe it's coming back with Vancouver buying this 144-foot club and Toronto buying a 200-foot Bronto, and they already have two or three or four 114s or 135s. Montreal, they had a whole fleet of Brontos. I don't know what they're doing now. They're all straight sticks now, but interesting to see what's going to happen.
It's just forward. Very different concept altogether. So for North America, it would be super specific, like a very unique truck for a unique application. And Europe is just different application. They don't have a truck crew. They don't have truck work. There's an officer and a driver setting those things up to rescue people. That's why you said like the 0 degree full load capacity at 0 degree. The Europeans is like, why? Like, I'm in the street. It's always going to be 60 degrees or more. So that's where I need it. I don't need it out there, right? So
because I'm trying to reach high.
Yeah.
Although, as we see with all the fires in the UK and around the world with building cladding systems and stuff, maybe we're going to see a desire for tall aerials in North America, more a resurgence. And
for war application, absolutely.
Maybe. And rescue.
Maybe.
And rescue maybe. Although we have the 2 stairwells, but we know how well that doesn't work with wind and all other stuff that we're still trying to figure out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good chatting.
Good talk. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Hope everybody enjoyed the Tailboard Talk. It's our second one, this time on high aerial apparatus and articulating platforms. And stay tuned. We'll have more interesting Tailboard Talks coming up, along with our regular episodes twice a month. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, Paul. Stay safe.
Bye. Thank you, Dirk.